Towering walls, razor-sharp fences, armed guards stationed every few feet. Welcome to CECOT, El Salvador's most notorious prison. From the outside, it's a concrete behemoth, a monument to fear and despair. Its very existence sends a chilling message: abandon all hope, ye who enter here. CECOT isn't hidden, it's a statement, a declaration of President Bukel's war on gangs. But at what cost? This isn't just about locking people up, it's about breaking them. Even the sunlight seems afraid to penetrate the prison's cold embrace. A constant hum of electricity crackles through the air, a reminder of the ever-present surveillance. CECOT isn't just a prison, it's a black hole, swallowing hope and spitting out broken men. Step inside and the true horror reveals itself. Gone is the world of color, replaced by an endless sea of concrete and steel. The air, thick with the stench of sweat and despair, is suffocating. Forget privacy, forget dignity. In CECOT, you are a number, stripped of your name, your identity, your very humanity. The cells, designed for a handful, overflow with dozens of inmates. Darkness is your constant companion. A single dim bulb illuminates the misery, a cruel parody of the sun. The silence is deafening. Every aspect of life, from the meager meals to the forced haircuts, is designed to dehumanize. This is not rehabilitation. This is punishment in its rawest, most brutal form. They were once the feared leaders of El Salvador's notorious gangs. Men who ruled through violence, their names whispered in the streets with a mix of dread and respect. Now, they are ghosts, hollow shells of their former selves. Take El Diablo, once a high-ranking MS-13 leader who now spends his days staring blankly at the wall, his spirit crushed by the relentless isolation. Or Sombra, whose tattoos, once symbols of power, are now faded reminders of a life left behind. Their stories, whispered through the cracks of this concrete tomb, speak of a living hell. They tell of a despair so profound that even death seems like a welcome escape. These are the human faces of Bukele's war on gangs, men transformed into cautionary tales, living proof of the prison's brutal efficiency. Nayib Bukele, El Salvador's young and ambitious president, promised his people security. He vowed to eradicate the gangs that had held the country hostage for decades, and he delivered. Under Bukele's rule, a state of emergency became the norm. Constitutional rights were suspended. Mass arrests, often without warrants or trials, filled CECOT and other prisons to bursting. The results were undeniable. Homicides plummeted. Streets once ruled by fear became, if not safe, then at least less dangerous. But at what cost? Bukele's critics, silenced by a mix of intimidation and propaganda, argue that he has created a police state, sacrificing liberty for the illusion of security. Section 5. A Cage for the Soul, the psychological toll of absolute isolation. CECOT's cruelty isn't just physical, it's a calculated assault on the mind, a relentless attack on the very essence of what makes us human. It's psychological warfare, designed to break the strongest will. The constant surveillance, the feeling of being watched every second of every day, the lack of human contact, the isolation that gnaws at the soul, the relentless silence, it all adds up to a slow, agonizing death of the spirit. Imagine being trapped in a place where time seems to stand still, where every minute feels like an eternity. Imagine a world devoid of color, of any form of joy, of laughter, of hope. A world where the only sounds are the clanging bars and the muffled sobs of your fellow prisoners. A place where despair is the only constant companion. A world where the only sounds are the clanging bars and the muffled sobs of your fellow prisoners. This is the reality of CECOT, a sensory deprivation chamber disguised as a prison. This is the reality of CECOT, a sensory deprivation chamber disguised as a prison. Studies have shown that prolonged solitary confinement can cause severe psychological damage, leading to hallucinations, paranoia, and suicidal thoughts. Studies have shown that prolonged solitary confinement can cause severe psychological damage, leading to hallucinations, paranoia, and suicidal thoughts. The mind, deprived of stimulation, begins to turn on itself. But in CECOT, such concerns are dismissed as weaknesses, proof that the system is working. The aim isn't just to punish, proof that the system is working. The aim isn't just to punish, it's to crush the human spirit, to break down the individual until they are nothing more than a shell of their former selves. The aim isn't just to punish, it's to crush the human spirit, to transform these men into docile shadows of their former selves. It's to crush the human spirit, to transform these men into docile shadows of their former selves. In this place, hope is a distant memory, and the future is a bleak, unending void, to transform these men into docile shadows of their former selves. In this place, hope is a distant memory, and the future is a bleak, unending void. The psychological toll of absolute isolation is a burden that few can bear, and even fewer can escape unscathed. Section 6, Supermax versus Mega Prison CECOT and ADX Florence, a comparison. Comparisons to ADX Florence, America's most secure Supermax prison, are inevitable. Both are monuments to isolation designed to house the worst of the worst, but the similarities end there. ADX Florence is a surgical tool, a place for a few dozen inmates, each held in carefully controlled conditions. CECOT is a sledgehammer, a mass incarceration machine holding tens of thousands. While ADX aims to isolate and contain, CECOT seeks to break and transform. It's a factory of despair, churning out broken men, stripped of their humanity and their will to fight. The very scale of CECOT makes it unique, a chilling experiment in social control, the likes of which the world has never seen. Section 7, The Devil's Bargain, Declining Crime Rates, and the Erosion of Human Rights. In this section we delve into the complex and often controversial measures taken to achieve a significant reduction in crime rates, and the subsequent impact on human rights. There's no denying the numbers, the statistics are clear and compelling. Crime rates have seen a dramatic decline, a fact that is celebrated by many. Since the construction of CECOT and the implementation of Bukele's iron-fisted policies, crime in El Salvador has plummeted. The once rampant violence and lawlessness have been significantly curtailed. Gangs, once a ubiquitous presence, have been driven underground, their grip on the country seemingly broken. Tourists are returning, businesses are reopening, the streets once feared are now bustling with life and activity. The fear that once permeated everyday life has, if not disappeared, at least diminished. Families now walk the streets with a sense of relief, and the heavy police presence has noticeably reduced. Bukele, once a controversial figure, is now hailed by many as a savior. His supporters argue that his tough stance was necessary to restore order and safety. But at what cost has this peace been achieved? The methods used to bring about this change have sparked a heated debate. Human rights groups, their warnings ignored, point to the thousands imprisoned without trial, raising serious concerns about due process and justice. Reports of torture and abuse within CECOT's walls paint a grim picture. The conditions in these prisons are harsh, and the treatment of inmates has been called into question. Is this the future we want? A society where safety is prioritized over fundamental freedoms, where the ends justify the means no matter how brutal? A world where safety comes at the expense of freedom, where the scales of justice are tipped in favor of security over liberty, where the erosion of human rights is the price we pay for peace? This is the devil's bargain we must confront and question. Section 8. A global penitentiary, the controversial deal with the United States. This agreement has sent shockwaves through the international community, raising questions about ethics, human rights, and the future of global justice. In a move that shocked the world, the United States, under the administration of President Marco Rubio, struck a deal with El Salvador. This unprecedented agreement has been met with both condemnation and support, highlighting the deep divisions in global politics. The agreement, to house America's undesirables within the infamous walls of CECOT. Forget Guantanamo Bay. Forget extradition treaties. This new arrangement bypasses traditional legal frameworks, creating a shadowy system of detention. For a fee, the U.S. can now send anyone deemed a threat, be they citizens, residents, or deportees, to languish in El Salvador's mega prison. The implications are chilling. Critics argue that this could lead to abuses of power and a lack of accountability. Due process, already under attack in El Salvador, is rendered meaningless. Legal experts warn that this deal undermines the very foundations of justice, eroding trust in the legal system. The U.S., once a beacon of freedom, is now outsourcing its justice system to the highest bidder. This move has sparked outrage among human rights organizations, who see it as a betrayal of American values. This deal isn't just about crime and punishment, it's about power. It's about the shifting dynamics of international relations and the lengths to which nations will go to protect their interests. It's about the U.S. exporting its problems and its conscience to a country willing to turn a blind eye to human suffering. The world watches closely as this controversial deal unfolds, questioning what it means for the future of global justice. Section 9. The high price of peace, justifying the means, a question for our time. The questions surrounding CECOT are complex, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. Can we, in good conscience, condone such blatant disregard for human rights, even if it leads to a reduction in crime? Is this the society we want to build, one where security trumps freedom, where the end justifies any means? The world is watching El Salvador, its gaze fixed on the concrete behemoth that is CECOT. This isn't just about one country's struggle with gangs and violence, it's about the very soul of our humanity, about the choices we make in the face of fear and uncertainty. The answers, as always, are complex. But one thing is clear, the price of peace, if paid in human suffering, is simply too high.